The Galactic Council had ruled the known universe for 12,000 years before humanity ever left their small blue planet. The council chamber on the station, called Nexus Prime, was a massive dome of living crystal. Grown over centuries by the ancient Velthari species, representatives from 47 spacefaring civilizations gathered there to discuss trade, resolve disputes, and maintain the delicate peace that held the galaxy together when humanity finally developed faster than light travel and made contact with the wider galaxy. The council watched with careful interest. New species were always a concern. Some came with weapons and demands, others came with lies and hidden plans. The humans, however, came with something nobody expected. They came with smiles. Ambassador Catherine Moore was 63 years old. When she first stepped into the council chamber in the year 2847 by Earth's calendar, she had spent her entire adult life preparing for this moment. She had studied every known species, learned their customs, memorized their greetings, and practiced their gestures until they became second nature. She bowed low to the Velthari delegate. Spreading her fingers in the traditional sign of peaceful intent, she spoke the 18-syllable greeting to the Corinth hive mind, pronouncing each clicking sound perfectly. When she addressed the light-sensitive Marathi, she turned her eyes away and spoke toward the floor, as their culture demanded. High Arbiter Zelkoth watched all of this with growing surprise. He was a crystalline being, 8 feet tall. His body made of living mineral that had taken 3 centuries to reach full maturity. In his 400 years of service to the Council, he had seen hundreds of new species make their first appearance. None had ever shown such careful respect. Kind of surprisingly agreeable, Zelkoth observed, his voice resonating through the chamber like wind through a canyon. Catherine Moore smiled warmly. We believe in making friends before making demands, High Arbiter. Humanity has waited a long time to join the galactic community. We want to prove that we belong here. Catherine did not tell the Council was the truth behind humanity's approach. Before first contact, the governments of Earth and all 17 human colony worlds had held a secret vote. The question was simple. How should humanity present itself to the galaxy? The debate had lasted for months. Some argued for showing strength immediately. Others wanted to hide humanity's true capabilities and gather intelligence. But in the end, the vote was nearly unanimous. Humanity would be nice. Genuinely, sincerely nice. They would be patient and polite, no matter what happened. They would turn the other cheek and prove to the galaxy that humans could be trusted. It was not an easy choice. Humans knew their own history. They knew the wars and violence that had marked their path to the stars. They knew the darkness that lived inside every human heart. But they also knew something else. They knew that they could choose to be better. And so they did. For the first 10 years, humanity focused on learning. Human diplomats studied at the feet of elder species, absorbing their wisdom and their customs. Human traders accepted unfair deals without complaint, building a reputation for reliability. Human scientists shared their discoveries freely, asking for nothing in return. The other species did not know what to make of this behavior. Some thought the humans were simply stupid. Others suspected a long-term scheme. But as the years passed and the humans continued to be helpful and humble, most species simply accepted it. The humans were pleasant. That was all. Catherine Moore served as ambassador for 30 years before retiring. In that time, she never raised her voice, never issued a threat, and never showed anger. Even when the Dravaki war speaker spilled hot drink on her ceremonial robes and laughed about it, she simply smiled and said, "Accidents happen." War speaker, Thax of the Dravaki Empire, is one of those who viewed humanity with contempt. His species had conquered 16 star systems through pure aggression. They were large, powerful beings covered in thick scales, with forearms and teeth designed for tearing flesh. The Council tolerated them because their military might was useful against threats from outside known space. Thax had watched the humans for decades, and he saw only weakness. They bent and bowed like servants. They apologized when they had done nothing wrong. They accepted insults with grace and responded to aggression with more politeness. The pink creatures have no spine, Thax told his aide one evening after a council session. They are soft, inside and out. If we ever need to break them, it will be easy. They will not even fight back. His aide, a younger Dravaki named Koreth, was not so certain. They have built a small fleet, he pointed out. 200 ships, and their population has grown. They now control 23 worlds. Thax waved one of his 4 hands dismissively. 200 ships is nothing, and their worlds are undefended. They have placed their faith in diplomacy and friendship. When the time comes, they will learn that the galaxy respects only strength. Meanwhile, on Earth and the colony worlds, life continued peacefully. The strategy of kindness had worked better than anyone expected. Human goods were in demand across the galaxy because human traders had a reputation for honesty. Human mediators were requested for disputes because they had a reputation for fairness. Human scientists were welcomed in laboratories across known space because they had a reputation for sharing. But beneath the surface, humanity remembered who they really were. On the colony world of New Haven, a retired general named Marcus Cole kept a small museum in his home. It contained artifacts from Earth's military history. Swords and rifles, uniforms and medals, photographs of battles won and lost. He showed these things to his grandchildren, not to glorify war, but to remind them of what humanity had survived, or not naturally. Peaceful, he told them one evening as they looked at a photograph from something called World War II. We have fought and killed each other since the beginning of our species. But we learned over thousands of years that cooperation works better than conflict. We chose to be kind. It was the hardest thing our species ever did. His granddaughter, a girl of 12 named Sophie, looked at the old weapons with wide eyes. But what if someone attacks us, Grandpa? What if they do not want to be friends? Marcus Cole was quiet for a long moment. Then he put his hand on her shoulder and smiled. But it was not a happy smile. Then we will remind them why we had to learn peace in the first place, he said softly. We will show them what we used to be before we chose to be better, and they will wish they had accepted our friendship when it was offered. Sophie did not fully understand what her grandfather meant. She was young and had grown up in peace. She had never seen humanity when it was not being polite, but she would. The whole galaxy would because far away. In the halls of power on the Dravaki homeworld, War Speaker Thax was planning something terrible. He had grown tired of watching the humans smile and bow. He wanted to see them break. He wanted to prove to the galaxy that kindness was weakness, and that the strong would always rule the weak. He had no idea what he was about to awaken. The colony world of New Haven was beautiful in the summer. Its sky was a deeper blue than Earth's, and its twin moons hung low on the horizon during the day, creating shadows that danced across the fields. 3 million people lived there, spread across farms and towns and small cities on the southern continent. Port Carson was the largest city, home to nearly 1 million souls. It had hospitals and schools, markets and parks, theaters and restaurants. Children played in the streets while their parents worked. Old people sat on benches and watched the world go by. It was, by all accounts, a happy place. Linda Price woke early on the morning of June 14, 2897. She was a farmer. Farmers did not get to sleep late. Her husband had died 2 years ago, and she ran the farm alone now, with help from hired workers during harvest season. It was hard work, but she loved it. Her daughter Emma was 8 years old and already awake when Linda came downstairs. Emma was eating breakfast and reading something on her tablet, her legs swinging back and forth under the table because they were too short to reach the floor. "Good morning, sweetheart," Linda said, kissing the top of her daughter's head. "Mom, can I help at the market today?" Linda smiled. Emma loved the weekly market in Port Carson. She loved meeting people and counting the money and arranging the vegetables in neat rows. "Not today, baby. You have school. But maybe this weekend, okay?" Emma pouted, but did not argue. She finished her breakfast, grabbed her bag, and headed for the door. Linda watched her go, feeling the quiet pride that came from raising a good child. "I love you, Mom," Emma called over her shoulder. "I love you too," Linda replied. Those were the last words they ever spoke to each other. In orbit above New Haven, 2 small defense frigates maintained their endless patrol. The Steadfast and the Horizon were older ships, designed more for customs enforcement than actual combat. Their crews were mostly young, serving their required 2 years before returning to civilian life. Captain Samuel Grant commanded the Steadfast. He was 42 years old, career officer who had chosen to stay in the small colonial defense force rather than seek glory in the main fleet. He liked the quiet life. He liked protecting people who just wanted to farm and raise families. At exactly 9:47 local time, his sensor officer spoke in a voice that was too calm for the words she was saying. Captain, 12 contacts just dropped out of faster-than-light transit. They are Dravaki warships. Weapons are charging.
Oh no.
Samuel's blood went cold. The Dravaki were allies of humanity, at least officially. There had been no warning, no declaration of hostility, nothing. But 12 warships did not arrive with weapons hot by accident. Open communications, he ordered. All channels. The communications officer worked frantically at her console. Channel open, sir. Samuel leaned forward. Dravaki vessels, this is Captain Samuel Grant of the Colonial Defense Frigate Steadfast. You have entered human sovereign space without authorization. Please state your intentions and hold your current position. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then the Dravaki response came, but it was not in words. The first plasma bolt struck the horizon amidships. The ship broke in half, both sections tumbling away into the darkness. 84 people died in that instant, including Captain Maria Santos, who had been 3 months away from retirement. Samuel did not have time to mourn. Evasive maneuvers? Return fire. The Steadfast was never designed to fight 12 warships. Her weapons were meant for pirates and smugglers, not military vessels. But Samuel and his crew fought anyway, because that was what you did when monsters came for your people. They lasted 7 minutes. Samuel's last act was to broadcast a distress signal to Earth and every human colony in range. He did not know if anyone would receive it in time. He did not know if it would matter, but he sent it anyway, because someone had to tell the galaxy what was happening. Then the plasma fire found his bridge, and Captain Samuel Grant died at his post, defending people he had never met. On the surface, the bombardment began. The Dravaki did not use ground forces. They did not try to capture territory or take prisoners. They simply pointed their weapons at the planet below and fired. Again and again and again. Port Carson took the first strikes. The downtown district vanished in a flash of light and heat. The hospital where doctors were treating patients. The school where Emma Price was learning mathematics. The market where Linda was setting up her vegetable stand. All of it gone in seconds. The smaller towns were next. Riverside, Green Valley, New Boston. Names that had meant home to hundreds of thousands of people became nothing but smoke and ash. The bombardment lasted for hours. When it was over, the Dravaki ships turned and left without a word. They had sent their message. The first rescue ships arrived from Earth 6 hours later. They found a planet that had been turned into a graveyard. Cities that had been full of life were now craters. Fields that had been green with crops were now black with ash. The air itself was thick with smoke and the smell of death. The final count took weeks to confirm. 2,800,000 people. Men and women, children and elderly, the sick and the healthy. All dead. Nearly the entire population of New Haven, wiped out in a single morning. Among the dead were Linda Price and her daughter Emma, who never got to help at the market that weekend. Among the dead were couples who had been planning weddings and grandparents who had been waiting for grandchildren. Among the dead were teachers and farmers, doctors and shopkeepers, artists and engineers. Among the dead were people who had done nothing wrong except believe that the galaxy was a safe place. War Speaker Thax received the reports on his flagship and smiled. The humans had been taught their place. They would submit now, as all weak species eventually did. They would come to the council and beg for protection, and the Dravaki would be magnanimous in victory. Perhaps they would demand a few human worlds as tribute. Perhaps they would simply enjoy watching the humans grovel. He sent his official report to the council. claiming that New Haven had been harboring terrorists and that the strike was a necessary action to protect Dravaki citizens. He did not expect anyone to believe the lie, but it did not matter. The strong did what they wanted, and the weak accepted it. That was how the galaxy worked. On Earth, the news arrived in the middle of the night. Government officials were awoken from their sleep. Military commanders were called to emergency sessions. Ordinary citizens saw the headlines when they woke and could not believe what they were reading. For a long moment, the human species stood in shock. This could not be real. This could not have happened. They had been so careful, so patient, so kind. They had done everything right, and then the shock began to fade, and something else took its place. Something old, something dark, something that humanity had locked away long ago, when they chose to be better than their nature. Across 23 worlds, 300 billion humans felt the same emotion rising in their chests. It was an emotion they had tried to forget, an emotion they had hoped they would never feel again. It was rage, and it was only the beginning. The council chamber fell completely silent when the human delegation entered. For 50 years, the humans had been known for their warm greetings and friendly smiles. They always acknowledged the other delegates, always used the proper customs, always seemed genuinely happy to be there. It was one of the things that made them so easy to like. Today was different, Ambassador. Daniel Carter walked to the speaking platform without looking at anyone. He did not bow to the Velthri. He did not speak the greeting to the Corinth. He did not turn his eyes away from the Marathi. He simply walked forward, his face empty of all expression, and stood at the center of the chamber. He was 38 years old, young for an ambassador. He had served under Catherine Moore for a decade before taking her place, and he had continued her approach of patient diplomacy. He was known for his sense of humor, his genuine interest in other cultures, and his ability to find compromise in difficult situations. None of that was visible today. The man who stood before the council looked like a stranger wearing Daniel Carter's face. High Arbiter Zelkoth cleared his crystalline throat. The council recognizes the human delegation. We have received reports of an incident in your territory. You have our deepest sympathies, and we stand ready to. I am not here for sympathy. The interruption sent a ripple of shock through the chamber. No species had ever interrupted the High Arbiter. It simply was not done, Daniel continued, as if nothing unusual had happened. I am here to inform the Council that humanity's diplomatic protocols are being suspended, effective immediately. Suspended? The Velthri delegate's tentacles rippled with confusion. I do not understand what you mean, Ambassador. Let me explain. Daniel's hands were at his sides, but there was a tension in his body that had not been there before. He seemed coiled, like a spring being compressed. For 50 years we have been polite. We have been patient. We have followed every rule, respected every custom, and accepted every insult with a smile. We did this because we believed in building trust. We believed that if we showed the galaxy our good intentions, we would receive good intentions in return. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was so quiet that the translation systems had to increase their volume to pick it up. To million. 800,000 of our people are dead. Children who never hurt anyone. Families who wanted nothing but peaceful lives. Entire communities wiped from existence because one species decided we were too polite to fight back. War Speaker Thax rose from his seat, his scales bristling with anger. The Dravaki Empire does not answer to human complaints. The action taken against your colony was a necessary response to sit down. The words cut through the chamber like a blade made of ice. Thax froze, not from obedience, but from something he had never felt before. The human was looking at him, and there was something in those eyes that made Thax's for hearts skip a beat. It was not anger. Anger was hot and wild and easy to understand. This was something colder, something older, something that came from a species that had spent 200,000 years learning how to destroy its enemies. Daniel repeated, his voice still quiet. And do not speak again until I am finished. You will have your chance to respond. That is more courtesy than you showed the children of Port Carson. Thax sat. Zelkoth leaned forward, his crystalline body catching the light from dozens of angles. Ambassador Carter, the Council understands your pain. but surely there must be a diplomatic solution. We can arrange arbitration, perhaps compensation. You think this is about money? For the first time, something like emotion flickered across Daniel's face. It was not a pleasant thing to see. You think we can be paid off for the murder of 3 million people? I did not mean to suggest no. You do not understand. None of you understand. Daniel looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each delegate in turn. You have spent 50 years watching us smile and bow and make nice, and you convinced yourselves that was all we were. You forgot something important. He took a single step forward, and several delegates unconsciously shifted back in their seats. You forgot where we came from. You forgot that we did not reach the stars by being gentle. We reached them by surviving everything our world could throw at us. Ice ages that covered our planet in frozen death. Plagues that killed half our population. Predators that hunted us in the darkness. And worst of all, each other. His voice remained quiet, but it filled the chamber like smoke filling a room. For 200,000 years, we fought and bled and died. We killed each other over food and territory and ideas. We invented weapons that could destroy cities in a single flash. We came within inches of ending our own existence, not once, but many times. And still, we survived. We made it to space not because we were peaceful, but because we were too stubborn to die. The Corinth hive mind spoke, its voice a chorus of 1,000 individuals. But you chose peace. You chose diplomacy. We have seen this ourselves. Daniel nodded slowly. We chose it. That is the part you do not understand. It was a choice. A conscious decision to put our best face forward and hope for the best. We locked away the part of ourselves that had survived all those years of darkness. We told ourselves we did not need it anymore. He turned back to Thax, who had not moved since being told to sit. But that part of us never went away. It was just sleeping. And the Dravaki just woke it up. Zelkoth spoke carefully, choosing his words with great precision. What exactly are you saying, Ambassador? Daniel's answer was simple. I am saying that humanity's respectful mode has been deactivated. What you are about to see is what we really are. What we have always been, underneath the smiles and the handshakes. And what is that? Daniel smiled, but there was no warmth in it. We are the species that survived everything. And we are very, very good at making sure our enemies do not. The Marathi delegate, speaking for the first time, asked the question that everyone was thinking. What do you intend to do? We intend to respond, Daniel said simply. But first, I have a question for the Council. 50 years ago, when we arrived in this chamber for the first time, we asked to be accepted as members of the galactic community. We promised to follow your rules and respect your customs. We kept that promise, even when others did not. He looked around the chamber one more time. Now I am asking you a different question. When we respond to what has been done to our people, will the Council stand in our way? The silence stretched for a long moment. Then Zelkoth spoke, his voice heavy with the weight of what he was about to say. The Council does not interfere in matters of self-defense. Daniel nodded. Thank you, High Arbiter. That is all I needed to know. Turned and walked toward the exit. At the door, he paused and looked back at Thax. War Speaker, I suggest you use the next 40 days wisely. Evacuate your civilians from military targets. Say goodbye to your loved ones. Make peace with whatever gods your species believes in. 40 days? Thax's voice cracked. What happens in 40 days? Daniel's smile grew colder. In 40 days, we arrive, and we will not be polite. Then he was gone, and the Council sat in stunned silence. Wondering what they had just witnessed, they would find out soon enough. The galaxy had seen many wars in its long history. The Velthari civil conflict that lasted 3 centuries. The Corinth expansion that consumed dozens of worlds. The Dravaki conquests that had made them feared across 16 systems. War was not new to the civilized species, but they had never seen anything like what humanity did next within 72 hours of the New Haven massacre. Something changed across all 23 human worlds. Factories that had been making farming equipment switched to producing weapons. Shipyards that had been building cargo haulers began building warships. Scientists who had been studying medicine and agriculture turned their minds to destruction. The transformation was so fast that the other species could not believe what they were seeing. The Corinth hive mind, which processed information faster than any other species, ran the numbers again and again. Each time, the results were the same. This should not be possible, the hive mind reported to the council. No species can shift industrial capacity this quickly. The humans are building ships at a rate that exceeds anything in recorded history. High Arbiter Zelkoth watched the reports with growing unease. How many ships? At current rates, they will have over 2,000 combat vessels ready within 40 days. That is 10 times their previous fleet size. Where did this capacity come from? Why did we not know about it? The Corinth hive mind was silent for a moment. We believe the capacity was always there. The humans simply chose not to use it. Their entire civilian infrastructure appears to have been designed with military conversion in mind. Their factories, their shipyards, their transportation networks, all of it can be repurposed for war production in a matter of days. They planned for this? They planned for everything. We believe this is simply how humans build things. They cannot help but prepare for the worst, even when they hope for the best on Earth. Admiral Patricia Webb took command of the newly formed combined human fleet. She was 61 years old, a small woman with gray hair and cold blue eyes. She had served in the Colonial Defense Forces for 40 years, rising through the ranks during a time of peace. Many had wondered if she would ever see real combat. Now they had their answer. Her first order was simple. Every human ship in the galaxy, military or civilian, was to return to human space immediately. Her second order was simpler still. She recorded a message and broadcast it on all frequencies, in every language the translation systems could handle. The message was addressed to the Dravaki Empire. Is Admiral Patricia Webb of the Combined Human Fleet? I am sending this message to give you a choice that you did not. Give the people of New Haven, you have 40 days to evacuate your civilian population from every military, installation, shipyard, weapons factory, and government facility in your territory. After 40 days, we will arrive, and we will not distinguish between military and civilian targets. She paused, letting the words sink in. You chose the rules of this engagement when you murdered our children. We will honor those rules. You have 40 days. Use them wisely. The message sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The Council convened an emergency session, demanding that Ambassador Carter explain humanity's intentions. You cannot do this, Zelkoth insisted. This violates every principle of civilized warfare. Targeting civilians is exactly what the Dravaki did to us, Daniel interrupted. They did not give us 40 days. They did not give us 40 seconds. They simply arrived and started killing. If those are the rules they want to play by, we will play by them. Better than they ever dreamed possible. But surely there must be room for negotiation. Perhaps some form of mediation. There is no negotiation. Daniel's voice was flat and final. There is no mediation. There is no compromise. The Dravaki killed nearly 3 million of our people, including children and elderly and hospital patients. They did it without warning and without mercy. Now they will learn what that decision cost them. The Velthari delegate spoke up. Ambassador, please. Consider the precedent you are setting. If humanity responds with such savagery, what message does that send to the rest of the galaxy? Daniel turned to look at the Velthari, and his expression softened slightly. It sends exactly the right message. It tells the galaxy that humanity can be the best friend you ever had or the worst enemy you can imagine. It tells them that we prefer peace, but we are not afraid of war. And it tells them that if you murder our children, we will burn your civilization to the ground and salt the earth behind us. The days passed quickly. On the Dravaki homeworld, panic was beginning to set in. War Speaker Thax had expected the humans to collapse after New Haven. He had expected them to send diplomats begging for mercy. He had expected anything except what was actually happening. The human fleet was growing larger every day. Ships that should have taken years to build were appearing in a matter of weeks. And the humans were not hiding them. They were broadcasting images of their new warships, letting the Dravaki see exactly what was coming. The ships were not beautiful. They were not elegant. They were brutal machines of war designed for one purpose only. Their hulls were thick and angular, built to absorb punishment. Their weapons were massive and numerous, designed to deliver destruction. They looked like something out of a nightmare. On the 39th day, Thax sent a message to the council requesting emergency arbitration. His voice, which had once been so confident, now trembled with fear. "The humans must be stopped," he said. "They have built more ships in 40 days than our empire has built in 100 years. This is not war. This is extinction." Zelkoff listened to the plea, then responded with a question. War Speaker. When the humans first arrived at the council 50 years ago, they asked to be accepted as friends. When you spilled drink on Ambassador Moore's robes and laughed about it, she simply smiled and said accidents happen. When your ships violated human space for decades, the humans filed complaints through proper channels and waited patiently for resolution. He leaned forward. Did you ever wonder why they were so patient? Did you ever wonder what they were hiding behind those smiles? Thax had no answer. They were hiding this, Zelkoth continued. They were hiding the species that survived ice ages and plagues and predators in each other. They were hiding the capacity for violence that allowed them to reach the stars. They showed you kindness, and you showed them death. Now, you are seeing what they really are. Can you stop them? Can the council intervene? Zelkoff's crystalline form seemed to grow heavier. The council does not interfere in matters of self-defense. And even if we wanted to, I am not certain we could. The human fleet is already larger than any force the council could assemble. They did not just build ships, War Speaker. They built an armada. On the 40th day, the sky above the Dravaki homeworld filled with human ships. Admiral Webb stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Retribution, and looked down at the planet that had ordered the death of 3 million people. She felt no joy. She felt no excitement. She felt only cold determination. "All vessels report ready," her tactical officer announced. "The Dravaki fleet has been destroyed. Their orbital defenses are offline. The planet is undefended." Patricia nodded slowly. "Open a channel. All frequencies. Channel open, Admiral." She leaned forward and spoke clearly, knowing that billions of Dravaki were listening. "This is Admiral Patricia Webb of the Combined Human Fleet. Your military installations have been destroyed. Your fleet has been eliminated. Your empire no longer exists as a political entity. You will surrender unconditionally within 1 hour, or we will begin bombardment of your population centers." She paused, then added one more sentence. "You have 1 hour. I suggest you do not make us wait." The surrender came in 43 minutes. The Dravaki Empire, which had terrorized the outer systems for 8 centuries, had been destroyed in 40 days, and the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. The war officially lasted 6 months, though the outcome was decided much sooner, after the Dravaki homeworld surrendered. The human fleet moved through their empire like fire through dry grass. Military bases fell in ours. Defense stations that had stood for centuries were reduced to debris in minutes. The Dravaki had spent 800 years building an empire of fear, and humanity dismantled it in half a year. But what shocked the galaxy most was not the speed of the victory. It was how the humans fought. They did not hesitate. They did not show mercy to military targets. They did not stop to negotiate or accept partial surrenders. When they said they would destroy something, they destroyed it completely. Their tactics were brutal and efficient, designed not just to win, but to make winning look easy. The Corinth hive mind studied human battle footage obsessively, trying to understand what they were seeing. Their analysis was disturbing. "Human soldiers do not fight like other species," the hive mind reported to the council. "They do not seek personal glory or try to prove their courage. They work together as units, each individual sacrificing for the group. They use tactics that seem reckless, but produce consistent results." And when they lose soldiers, they do not mourn during battle. They mourn later in private. During combat, they simply become more determined. What? More determined? Zelkoth asked. Yes. Most species fight less effectively as they take casualties. Morale drops, and units begin to break. Humans are the opposite. The more of them you kill, the harder the survivors fight. It is as if death makes them angry rather than afraid. It is unsettling. It explains much of their history. A species that becomes more dangerous when wounded would be very difficult to defeat. When the last Dravaki military installation fell, Admiral Patricia Webb returned to the council chamber to deliver her report. She stood at the same platform where Daniel Carter had announced the beginning of the war. She spoke in the same quiet voice. The Dravaki Empire no longer exists as a military power. Their fleet has been destroyed. Their shipyards have been dismantled. Their weapons factories have been reduced to rubble. They retain their homeworld and their civilian infrastructure, but they will not threaten anyone again for at least 3 centuries.
Alkoth considered his words carefully before responding.
And what of their civilians? We heard reports of bombardment. Patricia shook her head. We gave them 40 days to evacuate military targets. Most of them did. Civilian casualties were minimal. We are not monsters, High Arbiter. We simply refuse to be victims. But the warnings you gave, the threats of treating civilians as combatants, were exactly that. Warnings. We wanted them to know what we were capable of. We wanted them to understand that if they fought back, we would not hesitate. Most of them chose to surrender instead. She paused. We learned a long time ago that the best way to avoid killing is to make your enemy believe you will kill without hesitation. It is a strange kind of mercy, but it is mercy nonetheless. Daniel Carter entered the chamber a few minutes later. He looked tired, worn down by months of war and diplomacy. But there was something in his eyes that had not been there before. Something that looked almost like peace. The council has questions, Zelkoth said. Many questions. I expected as much. Daniel took his place beside Admiral Webb. I will answer what I can. The Marathi delegate spoke first. We wish to understand what happened. For 50 years, your species was known for kindness and patience. Then, in a matter of days, you transformed into something else. How is this possible? Daniel thought for a moment before responding. Do you know what a wolf is, delegate? I do not. A wolf is a predator from our homeworld. They are fierce hunters, capable of killing prey many times their size. But they can also be gentle. If you raise a wolf from birth, it will love you and protect you and play with your children. It can be the most loyal companion you ever had. Oh, he paused, choosing his next words carefully.
Ow.
But it is still a wolf. And if you threaten its family, it will tear out your throat without a moment's hesitation. The gentleness is real. The love is real. But underneath it all, the wolf remains. The Velthri delegate's tentacles moved slowly. You are saying that humanity is like these wolves. I am saying that we are exactly like these wolves. We chose to be gentle. We chose to be patient. We meant every smile and every handshake. But when the Dravaki killed our people, they woke the wolf that sleeps inside every human. And wolves do not forgive. Wolves do not forget. Wolves hunt. Zelkoth leaned forward. So what happens now, Ambassador? Do we return to the way things were? Can we trust that humanity will be gentle again? Daniel exchanged a look with Admiral Webb, then turned back to the council. We will be polite again. We will be friendly and helpful and all the things we were before. That is who we want to be. That is who we choose to be. But no, things will not be exactly the same. How so? Before New Haven, some species thought our kindness was weakness. They thought we were soft, easy to push around, easy to ignore. They thought that if it came to a fight, we would break. The Dravaki proved them right about none of those things. Now the galaxy knows the truth. He straightened his shoulders and spoke clearly, so that every translator in the chamber could capture his words exactly. Humanity will be your friend if you let us. We will trade with you fairly, help you generously, and stand with you in times of need. We will be the best neighbors you have ever had. But if you attack our people, if you harm our families, if you cross the line that cannot be crossed, we will destroy you. Not out of anger, not out of cruelty. Simply because that is what we do to those who threaten our pack. He smiled, and this time there was warmth in it. Real warmth, the kind that had made humanity so likable in the first place. So let us be friends. Let us build a galaxy of peace and cooperation. Let us show each other the best of what our species can be. I think you will find that humanity has much to offer if you give us the chance. Zelkoth was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice heavy with understanding. The Council accepts your proposal, Ambassador. And I think I speak for all of us when I say that we look forward to your friendship. Thank you, High Arbiter. We will not disappoint you. The session ended, and the delegates filed out of the chamber. Many of them looked at the human delegation differently now. Not with fear, exactly. More like the respect a person gives to a sleeping wolf. Admiration, yes, but also caution. On the way out, the Corinth hive mind paused beside Daniel Carter. Question, Ambassador. One that has troubled our collective since this began. Ask it. You said that humanity chose to be kind. That you locked away your darker nature when you came to the stars? But if that is true, then why did you build your civilization with military conversion in mind? Why were you ready for this war before it even began? Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he laughed softly, a sound that was somehow both warm and sad at the same time. Because we know ourselves. We hoped for peace, but we prepared for the alternative. We always do. It is both our greatest strength and our deepest curse. We cannot help but plan for the worst, even when we pray for the best. That seems like a heavy burden to carry. It is. But it is ours to carry. And if carrying that burden means we can protect our people when the darkness comes, then we will carry it gladly. He nodded to the Corinth and walked away. Admiral Webb beside him, the galaxy had learned something important that year. Humanity was kind. Humanity was gentle. Humanity wanted nothing more than to be friends with every species in the known universe. But underneath the kindness, underneath the gentleness, there was something else. Something ancient and dangerous. Something that had survived ice ages and plagues and predators and wars. The wolf was always there, sleeping with one eye open,